Ma'am, please step away from the front desk. This lobby is reserved for paying guests. We can't have people like you loitering here. The words dropped like ice in the sunlit atrium of the Luminary Hotel, bouncing off the marble floors and crystal chandelier. For a second, everything paused. Conversations, footsteps, even the air. Amara Ellis didn't move. Not yet. She looked at the man who'd said it, Victor Hayes, the hotel manager. He had no idea who he was speaking to. No idea that the woman he had just dismissed owned the very hotel he was guarding like a fortress. And in less than 10 minutes, his entire career would come crashing down. Before we dive further into what happened next, I want to know, where are you watching from? Have you ever been told you didn't belong in a space you worked for, paid for, or deserved to be in? Has anyone ever judged you the moment you walked through a door? Leave a comment below. And if you believe in dignity, in justice, in quiet strength, stay with this story. What happened next isn't just about a hotel. It's about what happens when power doesn't shout, but watches. It was just past 4:30 p.m. A tropical storm had rolled through the Miami coast that morning, delaying flights and check-ins. The lobby of the Luminary was alive with movement. Socialites, executives, and fashion influencers flowing through its golden corridors. The air smelled like orchids and wood polish. Amara walked in alone, dressed in a tailored charcoal blazer, crisp black slacks, and simple flats. No designer handbag, no entourage. Just her phone, a leather duffel, and the pearl necklace her late mother gave her the day she received her first investor check. She didn't want recognition. In fact, she hoped for the opposite. Amara had arrived quietly, driving her old silver 2010 Honda Accord herself, not because she couldn't afford more, she could buy the block, but because she needed to see if the online rumors were true. Reviews had been stacking up on Yelp and TripAdvisor. Comments about microaggressions, dismissive tone, ignored service, all pointing toward a quiet culture of bias at this very hotel, her hotel. And if her staff was making decisions based on skin tone and assumptions, she had to know, firsthand. Victor Hayes barely looked at her. He didn't check the name she gave, Amara Ellis, booked for the penthouse suite. Instead, he waved to the concierge beside him, Sophia Klein, who typed half-heartedly into the system. A reservation system glitch. A common error since the latest update. Briefly mislabeled her booking as incomplete. "There's no reservation under that name," Sophia said flatly. "You may be at the wrong location." "I have the confirmation here," Amara said calmly. Holding up her phone, Sophia didn't bother looking. Victor leaned slightly over the counter. "You can't linger here. Ma'am, the lobby's full with guests waiting to check in. We recommend trying one of the other hotels near downtown." At that moment, Olivia Caldwell strolled into the lobby in a floral silk gown. Flanked by her husband Ethan, she carried herself like royalty, chin high, lips pursed, her perfume arriving before her. Victor's posture changed the instant he saw her. He stepped around Amara like she wasn't there. "Welcome back, Mrs. Caldwell," he said warmly. "We have a little something extra for you this evening." Olivia smiled, her eyes drifting to Amara, lingering for a beat. "Is she waiting for someone?" she asked Victor. Then, casually, she slipped a folded bill across the counter. $500. "Let's make sure we don't have any interruptions during our stay." Victor pocketed the money without flinching. "Of course," he said. "VIP treatment, just as always." Then, without lowering his voice, he added, "We've had a few strays trying to slip in today." Olivia turned fully toward Amara. Her voice dipped in syrup and condescension. "Honey, this place isn't really for drop-ins." Her eyes scanned Amara's blazer. her shoes, her bag. "Maybe you should check with management. I'm sure they can guide you to something more appropriate for your price range." Amara didn't react. Not visibly. She simply tapped her phone's camera and began recording. Lila Patel, a 50-year-old journalist seated nearby with her laptop, noticed and did the same. A former editor for a national newspaper. Lila had seen enough in her career to know when a story was unfolding in real time. At the other end of the lobby, Malik Johnson, a black security officer in a Navy uniform, kept his eyes trained on the scene. He didn't move yet, but he recognized the storm brewing. Amara took a small step forward. "I'm asking once more. Please check the reservation under my name." Victor didn't even respond. Sophia crossed her arms. "Ma'am, you've been told this is not the place for walk-ins. We're already overbooked due to the gala." Malik finally approached. "Is everything okay here?" he asked. Amara held up her phone to show him the email. He glanced at it, jaw tightening slightly. "That's a valid confirmation," he said. Victor snapped. "She's not in the system, and if she's not listed, she's not a guest. That's it." Amara slowly turned her gaze to Victor. "You're sure you want to finalize that statement?" she asked, voice low. Olivia smirked behind her. "Is this really happening?" she whispered to Ethan. "They always think they're someone special." Ethan just nodded, bored. Checking his watch, Lila hit upload. The clip, 30 seconds long, was titled, "Black Woman Denied Entry Despite Reservation at Luminary Hotel." Within 2 minutes, a fashion influencer staying at the hotel reposted it to 2 million followers. Comments began pouring in. Victor remained clueless. "Ma'am, if you refuse to leave, I'll have security escort you out." Sophia whispered something to him, perhaps worry flickering in her eyes, but he waved her off. Olivia watched like it was theater. And then, as if the past had whispered back to her, Amara touched the pearls at her neck. She was 21 when she first stood in a hotel lobby like this, hopeful, prepared, dressed in her best thrift store skirt suit. She had applied for an internship at a 5-star hotel just a few blocks from where she now stood. The manager never even made eye contact. Just said, "We've filled the position," before interviewing another candidate, a white girl who walked in 20 minutes later. That moment lit a fire in her. She didn't cry. She studied harder, graduated faster, started from the bottom, front desk to corporate. And when she bought her first hotel a decade later, she made a vow never let her staff forget who they served or who they represented, but she had. Somewhere between board meetings and shareholder calls, something slipped. She trusted policies, audits, internal surveys. She forgot that discrimination doesn't file reports. It smiles to your face and denies you with a clipboard. Now it was staring her in the face again. Victor's voice rang out one last time. "You have 30 seconds to leave this lobby." Amara didn't flinch. She pressed a number on her phone. "Maya," she said clearly, "start the media call and prepare HR." Victor blinked. Olivia stepped back. And for the first time, Sophia looked nervous. None of them realized yet that the woman they tried to erase was the one who signed their paychecks. But they would. Very soon. Victor Hayes stiffened behind the marble desk, eyes flicking toward the nearest security call button as if Amara Ellis had just crossed some invisible line reserved for the uninvited. And in his voice now came a tone sharpened by arrogance and union-backed confidence as he declared, "If you don't leave the premises in 60 seconds, I'll have you escorted out by security. We're not obligated to tolerate this kind of behavior." The lobby, still buzzing with the chatter of gala guests, didn't hear every word, but those close enough glanced up, their conversations thinning into silence as tension began to coil through the air like smoke. And Amara, holding her phone steady in one hand, tapped her fingers against her pearl necklace, letting the feel of its weight anchor her to the years it took to reach this moment. Remembering when she was 28, in her second year at a mid-tier hotel chain, already managing a regional ops team yet still mistaken for housekeeping whenever she shadowed luxury properties. She remembered the day a client walked in, white, loud, dripping with money, and when she rose from the conference table to greet him, he looked right through her, shook hands with the junior associate standing beside her, and told him, "You must be the one in charge." A moment that had stung less because of the insult, and more because no one in the room corrected him. No one redirected credit. Not even the colleague she had trained. And it was that day she promised herself she'd build something of her own, a space where dignity wasn't optional or performative. And now, standing in her own lobby being treated like a trespasser, the irony scorched through her like acid. Sophia, clearly emboldened by Victor's stance and perhaps hoping to deflect her own fear of being seen as soft, crossed her arms again and added with a practiced coldness, "You're making a scene, ma'am. If you were truly a guest, your name would be in our system." And though her voice trembled slightly at the end, she masked it with a glare that didn't quite meet Amara's eyes. "She has a valid confirmation email," Malik Johnson said firmly, stepping between them, his posture protective but respectful, his tone calm, and Victor turned on him quickly, voice raised. "You're out of line, Johnson. This doesn't concern you." But Malik didn't back down, and as the light from the chandelier above bounced off the polished floor and the tension settled deeper into every polished edge of the room, Amara's phone vibrated lightly with a message from Maya. Media outlets flagged. Lila's clip trending. Influencer repost confirmed. What's your move? Amara didn't reply yet. Her hand closed around the phone, her mind already calculating what needed to happen. But she knew this moment required restraint, not reaction. Sophia took a step closer to Victor, whispering something that sounded like, "Should we really push this? What if?" But Victor raised a hand and said louder than necessary, "The rules are clear. No name, no stay. I don't care what video she's recording. She can post all she wants after she leaves." The air rippled as gasps moved through the crowd, now watching more openly. And Lila, holding her phone chest level, spoke just loud enough for those around her to hear, "It's streaming live. They're trending already. People are watching." Amara glanced toward a pair of guests in the corner, an older black couple who had been sitting quietly since her arrival, and saw the woman nod subtly at her, a quiet gesture of solidarity that said, "I see you. I've been you. I'm rooting for you." Olivia Caldwell laughed from behind the concierge desk, her voice dripping with cruelty. "Well, if she's not in the system, I say let the help do their job and show her the exit." Ethan snorted, barely concealing his smug boredom, and Amara turned to them now, not with fury but with something far more cutting, clarity. "It's interesting," she said evenly, "how quickly you all become experts on who belongs, as if you were born into ownership, as if power only wears your face." Victor pointed to the elevator. "You need to leave. Now." Malik didn't move. "Not until her booking is confirmed or denied by someone higher than you," he said. And for a moment, the entire lobby felt like a courtroom, frozen in anticipation of the verdict. Sophia's fingers hovered over the keyboard again, this time uncertain, her voice faltering as she admitted, "There might be a glitch from the update this morning. Some of the penthouse reservations didn't carry over." "Didn't carry over?" Lila repeated with a raised brow. "So what you're saying is, she might be telling the truth, and you tried to eject her based on what you assumed?" Victor glared at Sophia. "You weren't supposed to say that." Amara stepped forward. "So let me be clear. Your system is flawed. Your assumptions are louder than your process. And the only reason I'm standing here calmly is because I've seen worse than this. At 28, I was told to sit at the back of a leadership training I designed because someone assumed I was the caterer. And still I led the room. Still I rose. But you? You're about to fall. Not because of me, but because of what you represent. And as Victor opened his mouth to respond, another guest nearby, a young woman in a gala gown, lifted her phone and said, "Oh my God, this is her. This is the woman who owns Luminary Hospitality. I just Googled it." Sophia went pale. Victor froze. Olivia sputtered, "That's impossible. She drives a Honda." And Amara, adjusting the strap of her duffel, replied with a soft but lethal edge. "Some of us don't need status symbols to prove our worth. We just show up and watch." The lobby erupted in murmurs. Phones lifted. Malik took one small step back, giving her space. The chandelier above no longer glinted for the Caldwells. It glinted for her, and for the first time. Victor looked unsure, not of her presence, but of his own. Sophia Klein's fingers hovered above the keyboard, frozen between protocol and fear, as dozens of guests began turning their attention toward the confrontation unfolding by the front desk, and Victor Hayes, whose authority had moments ago filled the lobby with arrogant certainty, now blinked slowly, struggling to calculate the weight of the silence pressing down on him. Amara Ellis, still holding her phone calmly at her side, took one measured step forward and said, "You've questioned my reservation, my presence, and now my identity. So let's keep going, shall we?" Her voice, steady and firm, carried effortlessly through the chandelier-lit space, and Lila Patel, recording steadily from a velvet lounge chair nearby, whispered into her phone mic, "It's her. Confirmed. This woman owns the chain," a young bellhop whispered to his colleague, and within seconds, a ripple of realization began threading through the guests in the room like a tightening wire. But Victor clung to what control he had left. "There's no way," he muttered. "She's not. No one told me." And before he could finish, Malik Johnson stepped forward, now no longer just a witness, but a protector, standing at Amara's side with his back straight and eyes unwavering. "She gave you 3 chances," Malik said evenly. "You failed everyone." Amara turned to Sophia. "Run the name again," she said. "And this time, try using your eyes." Sophia, now visibly rattled, typed without speaking, and as the search returned with a blinking confirmation. "Penthouse suite. 3 nights. VIP flagged." Her face drained of color. Amara leaned slightly over the counter, not in anger but in clarity, and said softly, "You overlooked me because I didn't walk in with a label you recognize, but I built this hotel from the ground up. I interviewed the architect who designed that chandelier. I negotiated the marble contract when suppliers tried to gouge us. I even picked the scent that runs through this lobby. But none of that mattered to you. You looked at me and saw someone who didn't belong." Olivia Caldwell, standing beside Ethan in stony silence, finally snapped. "So what? We made a mistake? Why are we all pretending this is some kind of revolution?" Amara didn't look at her. She looked up, into the chandelier's reflection. "At 33, she began quietly, I led a project that doubled regional revenue. I broke every quarterly benchmark. And when the time came to name the new partner at my old firm, they chose a man who plagiarized my deck, said he was more client-facing, and told me I'd be next. That next never came." She paused. "So I left. I built Luminary from nothing. No trust fund, no corporate parachute. Just strategy, grit, and people who believed in me before I had a title. And yet here I am, still having to prove I belong." The guests listened in absolute silence. Lila kept filming. Victor opened his mouth, but no words came. Ethan Caldwell, trying to salvage his posture, muttered, "This is a gross overreaction." But Malik turned to him and said, "No, what's gross is thinking money means you never have to be accountable." Just then, Lila's phone pinged. The video had been picked up by 2 national blogs and was climbing Twitter trends under the tag #DeniedByMyOwnStaff. Though Amara had posted nothing, the people watching were doing the rest. "Do you want me to stop the stream?" Lila asked gently. Amara shook her head. "No. Let it speak for itself." In the background, a guest in a red gown whispered, "That's her, the CEO," to her partner. And another guest began recording from a different angle. Victor, red-faced and sweating now, turned to Amara and said, "We had no idea. No one told us. There was a glitch." Amara held his gaze. Glitches don't explain condescension. They don't explain bribes. She turned toward Olivia and added, "They don't explain your smirk when you thought I was beneath you." Lila stepped forward now, her journalistic instincts honed and sharpened. "Victor," she said, "are you aware this entire incident, from denying her entry to accepting a bribe, to your staff's refusal to verify a legitimate reservation, has been broadcast to tens of thousands of people in the last 20 minutes?" Victor turned pale. "This isn't how it looks." Amara responded immediately. "It's exactly how it looks, because it's how it's always looked. And now, for once, people are watching." Olivia's voice rose. "We're elite members. We've invested in this hotel for years." But Malik cut her off. "You invested $500 in silence." The room flinched. A murmur of shock swept the space as guests looked between Amara and Olivia. Then, just as Victor tried to retreat to the back office, another voice entered the mix, Noah Carter, a bellhop who had watched the entire incident unfold from the side. "Miss Ellis," he said, stepping forward. I knew who you were. I recognized you from the quarterly newsletter. But Victor told us if we ever challenged a guest complaint, we'd be written up. And when Sophia told me to ignore your name in the log, I froze." Amara didn't show disappointment, just calm. "And what will you do now, Noah?" He swallowed. "Speak up." She nodded once. "Good. Integrity starts when it's inconvenient." Lila's stream crossed 200,000 views. An anonymous whistleblower texted her mid-recording with a screenshot, internal staff chat logs where Victor had instructed the team to clear the lobby of stragglers before gala arrivals and had directly named Amara, without realizing who she was, as someone to redirect out the side entrance. Lila showed the screenshot to Amara. "How do you want to handle this?" Amara turned slowly to the growing crowd. "With truth, with consequence, and with reform." Sophia, trembling, stepped out from behind the desk. "I was afraid of losing my job, of speaking out. He threatened to cut my hours if I raised any complaints. I let that fear blind me." Amara didn't react with rage, only steadiness. "Then you'll answer for your choices, but you'll also be given the chance to grow, if you want it." And with that, she reached into her blazer and removed a business card, one embossed with her full title, Amara Ellis, founder and CEO, Luminary Hospitality Group. She placed it on the counter beside Victor, who stared at it as though it were radioactive. "Call security if you like," she said coolly. "But this time, they'll be escorting someone else out." Victor Hayes clenched his jaw as murmurs filled the lobby like rising water, the reality of what he had done crashing down with every recording light blinking from a guest's phone. But instead of retreating, he doubled down, voice tight and hands trembling as he barked. "This is still my property to manage. I don't care what she says she owns. I'm calling the union rep and hotel security now." And as he reached for his earpiece, trying to regain control over a situation that had already unraveled. Sophia Klein stepped back behind the counter, her face pale, her hands shaking as she quietly powered down the booking monitor, trying to disappear into the shadow of her own choices, while Malik Johnson, standing tall beside Amara Ellis, moved one step closer, prepared for escalation, but radiating calm. "Victor," Amara said quietly, "what you do next will define whether this moment ends with accountability or exposure that runs far deeper than you think." Her voice carried no malice, only truth. And that truth was beginning to weigh heavy on the room as a PR meltdown took shape in real time. Because just then, Lila Patel's phone buzzed again. A producer from a major national outlet requesting a clip license and official comment. And the influencer who had reposted her earlier video now had millions of views pouring in. The words "CEO denied by her own staff" stamped in bright captions, accompanied by clips of Victor's dismissive posture, Olivia's mocking smile, and Sophia's deflection. Guests around the lobby began turning on their phones. Whispers of, "Did you see?" and "She owns the hotel?" replaced small talk and travel complaints. Olivia Caldwell, who had stood with crossed arms for most of the standoff, finally broke into a sneer. "This is ridiculous. The staff was doing their job. You're just using your position to humiliate them." Amara turned to her slowly. "You bribed your way into a room that was never yours. You mocked a woman you assumed was beneath you. You treated this hotel like a stage where only your story mattered. But the story has changed." At that, Victor, red-faced and near shaking, activated his walkie. "Security to the front desk. Escort the guest in the gray blazer out immediately." The room inhaled. Malik stepped forward, blocking the path. "No one's escorting her anywhere. Not unless you plan on removing the CEO of the company from her own lobby in front of 6 witnesses and live coverage." The line went quiet. A pause. Then a crackle. "We have union protocol, sir." The voice from security answered. "We'll need executive-level authorization to proceed with removal." Victor's face contorted. "She's not." But he stopped himself, because everyone in the room already knew. Noah, the young bellhop, slipped behind the counter, eyes darting, and whispered to Sophia. "The guest logs. They were edited, weren't they?" Sophia didn't answer, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she turned slowly toward Amara, lips parting. "There was pressure. After the last review cycle, Victor said if I flagged anyone who didn't fit the tone, he'd escalate it." Amara looked at her. "And you listened?" Sophia swallowed. "I didn't want to lose my hours." There was pain in her voice now, pain and shame. "He told me certain guests made others uncomfortable. Said I could choose between being a friend to the system or a problem." Amara didn't yell. She nodded. "Once. That's how it starts," she said. "Small excuses, temporary choices, until one day you're turning people away who look like your own family." The chandelier lights shimmered as the storm outside rumbled faintly. And Amara thought briefly of a moment years ago. She was 36, standing in the glass conference room of a hotel board meeting, watching her colleagues talk around her, men in suits pretending not to hear her proposal, until one of them finally echoed her idea 3 minutes later and was met with applause. She had smiled, nodded along, never called it out, not because she didn't know, but because back then, she believed she had to endure in silence to earn a seat, and that memory now sharpened her tone as she turned back to Victor and said, "This is not silence anymore, and no seat is worth pretending bias doesn't exist." Victor attempted to regain footing, reaching for the only shield he had left. "You think the union will let this slide? You can't just fire someone like me without triggering a strike." Amara looked at him, expression unchanging. "Is that your threat?" That you'll weaponize the same system you corrupted to avoid accountability? Victor opened his mouth but said nothing. Lila's phone buzzed again. The HR director for Luminary's Southeast Division had just sent confirmation. Amara had full autonomous authority over all personnel actions at flagship properties. Amara caught Lila's glance, read the confirmation silently, then said, "I won't be intimidated by protocol designed to protect negligence." Sophia stepped forward again, tears in her eyes now. I was going to delete the footage," she admitted. "I was told to mark the logs as a guest disturbance, but I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "I have a younger sister. She's 15. She's watching this on TikTok right now. She sent me the video and asked if I was one of the people in it." Amara closed her eyes for just a moment, then opened them. "Then decide today who you want her to see. Someone who bowed to fear, or someone who changed." Malik nodded behind her. "Second chances," he said softly. "We all need one at some point." Amara turned to him with a faint smile. "We only earn them if we own what we did." A new voice cut through the air. Elena Ruiz, the junior concierge who had said nothing until now. "I saw the bias reports being deleted," she said, voice shaking but loud. "I didn't know who to tell, so I emailed myself the logs. I still have them." The lobby went completely silent. Victor's face collapsed inward. You little traitor," he said, voice low, but Amara stepped between them. "That's enough." Her tone was steel. "What's about to happen next isn't personal. It's policy." Sophia looked at Amara one last time. "I'm sorry." And Amara answered without anger. "Then show me you mean it. Because this lobby is no longer your shield. It's your mirror." The chandelier above flickered once in the dimming stormlight. And outside, police sirens wailed in the distance, not for anyone in the hotel, but echoing like a warning nonetheless. The stage had shifted. The truth was no longer quiet, and the reckoning had finally arrived. Victor Hayes opened his mouth to speak again, but the words never found the air, because at that moment Amara Ellis slowly reached into her blazer and pulled out a slim, cream-colored business card, one that glinted faintly under the chandelier's glow, and placed it gently on the front desk. Right between Sophia's trembling hands and Victor's rigid posture, the card bore her full title in embossed lettering: Amara Ellis, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Luminary Hospitality Group. And for a second, the room fell into a silence so deep it pressed against the chest, the kind of silence that isn't quiet but loaded with the breath of dozens holding it all at once. "You want executive-level authorization?" Amara said, voice clear, calm, final. "You're looking at it." Victor stared at the card like it might bite him. His lips moved, but no sound came. And across the room, someone gasped loud enough to cut through the tension. A woman in a red cocktail dress whispered, "She's the CEO? She's the one?" And Lila Patel, still recording, nodded silently, confirming what the world outside the lobby already knew. The woman they'd tried to remove owned the entire building. Olivia Caldwell stumbled backward a step. You can't be serious," she said, looking at Amara like she was seeing her for the first time. "You let us treat you like that. You didn't say anything. Why would you do that?" And Amara looked at her, expression cool but edged with something deeper. Resolve. "Because I needed to see it. With my own eyes. I read the reviews. I saw the patterns. But this confirmed it. I wanted to believe we were better." She turned back to Victor, who now looked utterly deflated. "Victor Hayes," she said steadily, "you are terminated effective immediately for accepting bribes, falsifying guest logs, mishandling reservations, and violating every DEI policy we've put in place." Victor's face turned a shade paler. You can't just... But Amara cut in. Yes, I can. And I am... She tapped her phone once. Maya, execute the HR file, include the footage, immediate revocation of employee credentials. On the other end, Maya's voice came through softly. Understood. Press release is prepared. Legal is looped. Across the lobby, several staff members had gone motionless. One of them whispered into a walkie. Sophia covered her face with one hand. I made a mistake. She choked out. I followed what I was told. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know what I was doing. Amara looked at her for a long moment. And you're not being fired, she said. You're being suspended, pending retraining and review, not because I condone what you did, but because fear and ambition cloud judgment. I want to see if growth can follow shame. Sophia's shoulders sagged. I'm so sorry, she said. My sister's still watching. Amara nodded once. Then give her something worth watching. The room was so still it felt like a courtroom. Malik stepped to Amara's side as if to hold space with his presence, not to protect, but to support. And Elena Ruiz, Amara added, her eyes finding the junior concierge who had revealed the bias logs. Effective today, you're being promoted to lead guest relations coordinator, pending onboarding to our ethics council. Elena blinked, stunned. I thought I was going to lose my job. You nearly did, Amara said gently. But courage speaks louder than fear, and you chose courage. Applause broke out, not thunderous, but real, hands clapping from scattered corners of the lobby. The kind of applause not for a title, but for the weight of integrity made visible. Olivia snapped. You can't ban us. We're longtime clients. You don't just erase people. Amara turned to her. You're banned from every luminary property worldwide. Effective immediately. Refunds will be issued for the remaining reservation. But understand this. Loyalty doesn't excuse abuse. Wealth doesn't purchase dignity. Ethan Caldwell raised his hand like he wanted to protest, but the words never came. He simply looked at the floor and nodded, as if finally realizing his name didn't mean immunity. Lila lowered her phone. Do you want to issue a public statement now? She asked. Amara thought for a moment, then shook her head. The truth already spoke. Guests began murmuring to each other, several approaching Elena to thank her, others nodding at Malik, at Lila, at Amara. The lobby had changed, not in design, but in energy. A quiet weight had lifted. Amara glanced at the chandelier, its flickering steadier now, its light softer. She exhaled once, then adjusted the necklace around her neck, the one her mother had given her long ago with the word strength engraved in the center pearl. She remembered being 38, 2 years into the CEO role, sitting in a glass conference room in New York while investors pushed her to quietly walk back a set of diversity initiatives to keep major partners comfortable. She had sat in that chair, stared out at the skyline, and seriously considered quitting, walking away from everything. But she didn't. She stayed. Not because it was easier, but because leaving would have meant surrendering the space to the very forces she was trying to dismantle. And now, standing in her own lobby, having just removed the rot herself, she felt that same storm subside. We fix what we face, she whispered. Then, without fanfare, she picked up her duffel bag, tucked her phone into her pocket, and walked toward the penthouse elevator. Not escorted, not dismissed, not explained, just seen. The moment Amara stepped into the penthouse elevator, the lobby below didn't quiet. It transformed, its polished elegance now layered with consequence and reflection. As the PR crisis she had anticipated began unfolding across media outlets like a tidal wave cresting toward the brand's entire reputation. News headlines updated in real time. Screenshots of Victor's confrontation and Lila's live stream spreading across feeds with captions like CEO denied at her own hotel and hospitality giant faces internal bias scandal. And even as Maya coordinated with HR and communications from Amara's upstairs suite. The impact was already visible. Calls flooded corporate. Cancellation notices pinged inboxes. And union leadership issued a cautious statement requesting immediate dialogue. But Amara, pacing slowly across the penthouse floor with bare feet on cool stone, didn't panic, didn't flinch, because this was not unfamiliar terrain at 39, just over a year ago. She had fought to rewrite Luminary's internal guidelines after a promising young front desk associate, caught falsifying feedback scores to protect a colleague, was terminated without due process. Amara had intervened quietly, forced a policy review, and implemented the framework that now guided her thinking. Truth paired with transformation. It was the first time the phrase second chance leadership appeared in Luminary documentation. And now, she would use it publicly. Back in the lobby. Sophia Klein stood quietly behind the desk, stripped of authority but not dignity. Her eyes red, but her spine straighter. As Malik approached and handed her a tablet containing the company's full DEI retraining syllabus, now mandated under immediate suspension protocol. "You have a path forward," he said gently, "but it's your choice to take it." Sophia nodded once. "I want to," she said, voice tight. "I need to." Nearby, Noah Carter was gathering guest feedback cards, several of which had handwritten notes addressed to the brave woman in the gray blazer. Lila, standing near the lounge, watched it all, documenting moments not for clicks, but for legacy. "It's not just about calling them out," she whispered to her camera. "It's about how they clean it up." And right then, Amara's voice echoed softly from the overhead speakers, calm, composed, live from her suite. "To all guests and staff of the Luminary Hotel," she said, "what happened in our lobby today exposed something painful, but necessary, not just a glitch in booking, not just a lapse in training, but a deep fracture in the trust we promise our guests and the values we promise ourselves. This company was built to serve with excellence and empathy. That vision was compromised. So starting now, we are launching the Harmony Stay Protocol, a cross-property initiative focused on restoring dignity in every layer of hospitality." The lobby held still, every phone pointed upward. "This protocol includes the following," Amara continued. "Mandatory DEI retraining for all frontline and leadership staff, bias incident transparency reporting with whistleblower protection, and a second chance system designed to identify not only misconduct, but the conditions that enable it. Suspension does not mean erasure, but there will be no tolerance for corruption, cruelty, or cowardice disguised as policy." Elena Ruiz, still adjusting to the shock of her promotion, was pulled aside by Malik, who handed her a welcome packet bearing the Harmony Stay seal. "You'll help shape it," he said with a proud smile. "You earned that." Meanwhile, Victor Hayes, still sitting in the small staff holding area, looked down at the termination notice on his lap. Signed, time-stamped, final. He exhaled, a slow, heavy breath. "I thought I was just playing the game," he said quietly. Lila turned her lens toward him. "Which game?" He looked up. "The one where you do whatever keeps power happy." He didn't excuse himself, didn't ask for reversal, just sat there, wrecked by the realization that the shortcut he took, one bribe, one bias-rationalized order, had cost him everything he thought he was building. Upstairs, Amara stood by the window as the rain outside slowed to a soft drizzle. Her phone buzzed again. Maya confirming the Harmony Stay press release had gone live. News outlets picking it up with cautious optimism. One headline read, "From Bias to Blueprint, Luminary CEO Flips Scandal into Reform." Amara looked down at her mother's pearl necklace in her palm, the word strength catching the room's soft light. This wasn't the first time she'd faced collapse, and it wouldn't be the last. But this time, she wasn't reacting. She was rebuilding. From the inside out, 6 months later. The lobby of the Luminary Hotel looked almost exactly the same. Gleaming marble, soft chandelier light, the hum of quiet luxury. But everything beneath the surface had changed. Not just in furniture or faces, but in the way people moved, the way they looked at one another, as if dignity had finally been woven into the atmosphere. No longer a slogan, but a standard. Guests walked through with confidence. Staff greeted them not just with service, but with sincerity. And behind the check-in desk, Elena Ruiz, now head of guest ethics and training, smiled warmly at a young couple as she handed over their key card. Not because she was trained to, but because she understood what it meant to be seen. The Harmony Stay protocol had gone from a rapid response initiative to a nationwide movement, adopted by 4 rival hotel chains within 3 months, and discussed at the International Hospitality Equity Summit as a model for structural reform in frontline service industries. Weekly bias reports were now reviewed by an independent oversight committee. Guest feedback forms had a new section titled Dignity of Experience, and most powerfully of all, a Second Chance Fellowship was launched, offering retraining and support for staff who had erred under pressure but demonstrated accountability. Sophia Klein became its first graduate. Her retraining was rigorous. 6 weeks of empathy seminars, history briefings, role reversal simulations, and in her final week, she addressed the staff cohort herself, voice steadier than it had been in the lobby that day. "I almost lost who I was because I wanted to keep a job," she said. "But the real loss was in staying silent when I knew someone was being erased. The Harmony Stay program didn't just give me tools. It gave me a mirror." The room had applauded. She now led bias recognition training twice a month, not as penance, but as purpose. Victor Hayes never returned to Luminary. His online apology, issued 2 weeks after his dismissal, was exposed as a ghost-written PR draft, and Lila Patel broke the story with the headline, "When Sorry Isn't Yours to Say." That article earned her a nomination for an Investigative Journalism Award and an invitation to contribute to the new Equity in Hospitality Standards Task Force, where she now consulted on guest justice and staff protections. As for Olivia and Ethan Caldwell, their attempted legal action against Luminary was quietly dropped after footage surfaced tying them to a pattern of complaints filed by former hotel staff in Aspen, Palm Beach, and Dubai. They were banned not just from Luminary, but blacklisted across multiple networks. Reminders that entitlement without accountability was no longer welcome in public spaces. And as all of this unfolded, Amara Ellis didn't retreat into a boardroom or hide behind statements. She led, quietly, consistently. She attended staff orientation every month. She spoke to guests directly. She launched an internal podcast where she interviewed housekeepers, bellhops, chefs, and night auditors, asking them the same 3 questions. When were you last seen? What did it cost you to be ignored? And what would dignity look like today? One of those episodes, featuring a janitor named Ray who had worked 20 years without ever being asked his name, went viral for its closing line. "Dignity," Ray said, "feels like being asked a question before being given an order." Amara carried that line with her everywhere. On December 6th, the 6-month anniversary of the incident, Luminary held a quiet gathering in the same Miami lobby. No balloons, no press, just staff. a few longtime guests, and a new brass plaque on the wall, beneath the chandelier that had witnessed it all. The plaque read, "In honor of every person ever told they didn't belong, until they proved they already did." Amara stood nearby, hand gently resting over her pearl necklace, the one her mother gave her with the word strength etched into the center. A young employee, maybe 20, approached her nervously and asked, "How did you stay calm that day?" And Amara smiled, not with polish, but with memory. "Because I wasn't alone," she said. "I had my mother's voice in my ear. I had the truth in my hands, and I had people watching, not for spectacle, but for hope." The young woman nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, "for holding the line." That night, as the last guests checked in and soft music played beneath the chandelier, Amara looked around the lobby one more time, not for mistakes, not for evidence, but for community. Because she hadn't just rebuilt trust, she had seeded a legacy, one where justice didn't arrive with fury, but with grace, and where reform didn't begin after the damage, but precisely when someone said, "No more." That legacy, like her mother's pearls, would be passed down, one quiet, unshakable truth at a time. If you've ever been told you didn't belong, let this be your reminder. You do. Share this story. Speak up when it matters, and help build a world where dignity is the default, not the exception.